Hello again, estate planning attorney Paul Rabalais here, and in this video we're going to talk about what a QTIP trust is. So there's so many different kinds of trusts out there that confuses everybody, and occasionally in your readings or as you watch videos you may see reference to something called a QTIP trust, and you might be thinking, what in the heck is that? Because probably when you hear QTIP, you're probably thinking of something like this. Or you might be thinking of, a box like this. And by the way, as I was making this video and planning it, I was wondering, do we have any Q-tips? And so I went into me and my wife's master bathroom. That's probably more than you need to know right there. And I realized that Q-tips are the ultimate home and beauty tool. Isn't that nice? Well, a QTIP trust may very well be the ultimate estate planning tool. All right, so a QTIP trust, I'm going to tell you all about it. It accomplishes essentially three main things. Number one, it helps married couples and their families avoid estate tax. Number two, it provides for the well-being of a surviving spouse. And number three, it provides protections for the children or other heirs from a surviving spouse who may remarry or otherwise attempt to squander assets after the death of the first spouse. So let me give you a couple of examples, but I'll start with the fact that, let me talk about taxes and estate taxes for just a moment. So over the last 3 decades where I've been working as an estate planning lawyer, the estate tax exemption amount has ranged anywhere from a low of $600,000 to a high of $11.58 million. In fact, for 1 year, there was no estate tax exemption. But we'll forget about that for a moment. So what all that means is the estate tax exemption amount, that's how much somebody can have when they die without estate tax being due. So if years ago the estate tax exemption was $600,000, somebody died, you add up the fair market value of everything that they owned when they died, their house, their retirement account, their savings, their cars, their business. And if, for example, they owned $1 million of assets when the exemption was $600,000 many years ago, there would have been $400,000 of assets subject to an estate tax of somewhere between 37 and 55%. So there would have likely been a couple of $100,000 more or less due within 9 months to the IRS, within 9 months after the death of that person who passed away. So the problem here is you have no idea, thank goodness. I have no idea, thank goodness. But you have no idea when you're going to proverbial kick the bucket. Maybe it'll be in 2 years, maybe it'll be in 10 years, maybe it'll be in 30 years or more. And we have no idea when you pass away what's going to be the estate tax exemption, and then what are those tax rates going to be on the amount of your estate that exceeds the estate tax exemption. So it's really critical that you need to be prepared and have an estate planning program that builds in the flexibility to be able to take advantage of whatever those tax rules might be in the future when you pass away. All right, so now let's give you an example. Let's say years from now, and in our political climate, who knows what laws will be next year, much less 5 years from now, 10 years from now, 30 years from now. But most people predict that the tax laws will be stiffer in the future. So let's say years from now, Congress creates the estate tax laws, and let's say years from now the estate tax exemption is $2 million. And let's say a husband with a wife and 3 children, husband dies with an estate of $4 million. And let's say when he dies, the estate tax rate is 50%. So he dies with an estate of $4 million. The estate tax exemption amount is $2 million. So that leaves $2 million subject to the estate tax at a rate of 50%. So within 9 months after that husband dies, the husband's executor or trustee, maybe his wife, maybe one of his kids, maybe some other corporate trustee, is going to be cutting a check to the IRS for $1 million. Can he get around that? Yes, he can get around that by leaving his estate to an irrevocable QTIP trust. So you might say, what the heck does that mean? What's a QTIP trust? Well, QTIP, it doesn't have anything to do with these cotton swabs, which happen to be the ultimate home and beauty tool. But QTIP, and I'm going to tell you what it stands for, Qualified Terminable Interest Property, which is a bunch of legal mumbo jumbo. Don't worry about it. It's in the tax code. So the way the tax code is set up, it's especially as it has to do with married couples and estate tax, the tax code is basically telling married couples, hey, if you set things up right, married couple will let you arrange things so no matter what the size of the estate is of the first spouse to die, if you set it up right, we'll let you arrange things so that no tax has to be paid upon the death of the first spouse. And with the appropriate elections of stuff, the tax code basically says, you know, we're gonna collect that tax when the surviving spouse dies. That's when we'll get our chunk, essentially is what the tax code says. So in order to take advantage of what they permit you to do, that husband with that $4 million estate, what he would do is he would leave his estate to a trust, which requires that after he dies, that all of the net income of that trust, typically things like dividends and interest and rental income, if there was rental property, all of the net income from that trust after the husband dies must be paid to the surviving spouse for the surviving spouse's lifetime. And that trust may provide that additional distributions of principal could be made to that surviving spouse. And when it's set up that way, and I'll tell you what, one more thing, when the trust is typically set up so that, again, husband dies, leaves his $4 million estate to a trust, his wife gets the income for life, the wife may be able to get additional principal distributions, and then the trust says that when the wife later dies, when the surviving spouse dies, the husband would have dictated where those assets go, probably to the husband's children. So, so the way all the tax stuff works is when the husband dies, leaving his estate to a QTIP trust, normally there'd be $1 million of tax due under our example, but an estate tax return, it's called IRS Form 706. Within 9 months after the husband dies, an estate tax return gets prepared and filed with the IRS, showing how the husband left his estate and making this appropriate, what's called QTIP election. And if all that gets done properly, no estate tax at all, zero, is due when the husband dies. That excess $2 million of assets that would have been taxed had it not been for the QTIP election, that excess $2 million now gets moved into the surviving wife's estate, perhaps to be taxed when she dies. But maybe it will be spent during her lifetime. Maybe the estate tax exemption will be very large when she dies. So there's a possibility that the married couple can avoid estate tax completely. So what the QTIP trust does, it gives a married couple estate tax flexibility. It gives a surviving spouse access to assets of the first spouse to die, and it provides protection for the heirs or children of the first spouse to die, because when the surviving spouse dies, those QTIP trust assets automatically revert back to the heirs of the husband. The surviving wife doesn't get to redirect those assets to someone else, like a new spouse, for example. So hope that helps. That's the QTIP trust. Really, really flexible, really, really common. Have to watch out for what the estate tax exemptions are. but many couples like the advantages of the QTIP trust, even though they don't have a taxable estate and they don't have to worry about estate tax. They like what the QTIP trust does because it makes assets available for the spouse, but then protects the children as well. So make sure you do smash the like button. Also hit the subscribe button and the notification bell to make sure you don't miss anything, and it'll tell YouTube, hey, show Paul's videos to more people. I hope you found this video helpful and then you enjoyed watching it half as much as I enjoyed making it. We'll see you next time.